Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ and Maddie.
Welcome back, my man.
Hanging out in Denver. Check out the suites. Just landed, ready to rock. I actually changed this time. I think it was Miami last time. I was like still in my uniform, ready to rock. But
Every week, a new
it's good
city,
to be here.
a new story.
Yeah. Where am I going? Man, I was in Miami last night. Was it Miami? I don't know. I lose track of places, lose track of days. All the airports look the same. But for anybody out there, we are doing the week preview. We're getting you ready for week number 7. Bit of a weird one when it comes down to streaming. We'll get into that in a little bit. We've got some observations coming. We've got the injuries to get over. If you guys want to find us, we're on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We got the Fantasy Hockey Discord for you to check out. Let's hop right into it, man. Some standout performances. First off, I mean, the big guys are doing the big things. Connor McDavid, Mikko Rantanen, both putting up like close to 2 points per game, 3 points per game, even sometimes. McDavid, some more points tonight. Like he
2 more
is
tonight.
back. Yeah, he's back. Marchment doing things. McMichael, 4 goals in 3 games played. Blackwood had a shutout. Saros had a shutout, but you know, the Predators are still the Predators this year. So weird because on paper that was such a good team, but just hasn't clicked. And then Mackenzie Blackwood, I had him in here. Vanacek, he got pulled tonight. I think he got hurt. So I wonder if Blackwood gets a little more run. But he's been looking relative to San Jose, he's been looking good.
Yeah, those are sneaky starts. When you get one of those Anaheim or San Jose goalies that can come in and post a really good save percentage, kind of win you a week like that underneath the radar, nobody even knows you picked him up. Those guys are sneaky useful. So Blackwood certainly did it last week. Brady did it last week. Our banger, he literally, what did he engage banger God mode there? 20 shots on goal and 20 hits over the last week. And both of those are the top of their respective categories. So yeah, Brady did both of those things. He did chip in 3 points in 3 games, a power play point, game-winning goal. But he did what you drafted Brady for. Point a game and all kinds of shots and hits. Dustin Wolf over in Calgary played 2 games. They won both of those games, 57 saves. One of those was a shutout. So Wolf has been a very good pickup for owners throughout the year. Calgary allows a lot of shots, 6 most in the league per game. So whether it's volume, certainly going to reward any sort of format where you're rewarded for volume. But Dustin Wolf, give yourself a pat on the back if you drafted him or probably most likely picked him up, right, TJ? I mean, probably not a lot of people were drafting and holding him through that drought.
Yeah, he's that pickup. I'm looking at this. Something I was looking to get is maybe one of the best single game stat lines we've ever seen was Brady Tkachuk versus Boston. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 2 penalty minutes, everything at even strength. No, power play assist, 12 shots, 8 hits, 4, even got some face-offs. He was 1 block and power play goal short of covering literally every single category. Just a phenomenal performance.
He is, and specifically in category leagues. We're actually going to touch on this a little bit later on in the show, but he gives you that burst potential for the categories he gives you exposure to that not many other players do. Those are the players that win you weeks. And depending on where you're sitting at in the standings, that's going to be pretty important to you as we go through. So we'll keep this moving. Josh Norris, 3-game goal streak, 1 assist in those 3 games as well, too. He's got 8 shots. So, it's 40% shooting, small sample size, 7 hits, 2 blocks. He's on the ice 20 minutes a game, line 1,
he's covering
power play
categories
1.
too.
Absolutely, he is. Zach Werenski, last 3 games, he's got 3 points, 2 power play points, shoots the puck. I mean, I purposely targeted him in an early season trade because I just love the shot volume from the back end. He blocks a lot too, actually. But 3 games, 14 shots, 1 hit. He's not going to do that for you. But 9 blocks certainly is awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, Seth Jones went down a little bit earlier this afternoon. Yeah. Werenski leads the league in time on ice per game. So that dude is literally on the ice more than anybody else. Another player on a heater, Mikael Granlund, continuing his heater. So 3 games played. He's got a goal and an assist. They played tonight. He's got at least a goal on the board tonight. as well. 17 shots across his last 3 games. He's got a hit and 4 blocks. He's 10th in the league in shots, TJ. I mean, this is a career shooter under 2 shots a game. And this year he's 3.5, approaching 4.
He's try eligible now too.
Try eligible, just the chef's kiss for Grandland owners is the try eligibility. Their schedule is good actually over the next month or so too. So if you have him, you're going to play him a lot. Buddy, Stefan Nason, like the last 4 games, he's literally taking everything from Timo Meier.
Meier, yeah.
Even the bangs now. So like in those 4 games, 3 goals, but 13 shots on goal, fantastic. 14 hits. He's up on line 1 with Timo, but line 1 at even strength, power play 1s where Timo is on power play 2. Meanwhile, Timo's got 1 point in his last 5. I know he's got about 5 shots on the board tonight. I didn't see how that game finished, but they were getting blanked actually by Tampa. So he's got 1 point in his last 5. He's power play 2. The ice time's kind of consistent, under 18 a minute.
Consistently low, yeah.
It is, but you know what? The more I looked into it, so he's got more games this year with no power play time than games with over 50% of the power play share. So if you're holding Timo Meier for power play points or exposure to that PP1, that's not what's happening there. And I took a look back. So time on ice per game, percentage of power play share, shooting percentage, shots on goal per game, hits per game, and blocks per game. TJ, that's every damn stat we count. All of those are identical to 2023 Timo in New Jersey right now. Every single one of them. So it's not to say that he can't pop, but he's doing exactly what he did last year. And we're expecting him to do something different. So until we see otherwise, Timo's probably going to do what he did last year, which is not anything to write home about. It's not anything to be upset about, but just expectations should be monitored at this point.
I'm getting a lot of like shades of, you remember Oliver Ekman-Larsson back in Arizona? He put up a 55-point year. And then for years and years and years, he just catfished owners into thinking like, you know, this is who Oliver Ekman-Larsson is. And I wonder if that's what we got on Timo. That's going to be an off-season conversation, you know, when we have the gift of hindsight when it comes to the end of this season. Just taking everything that Timo's done in. I'm also getting shades of Blake Coleman in New Jersey from Stefan Nason. Like, I wonder if we get kind of just a category monster waiver wire pickup at like Stefan Nason. And this is a terrible week for it because I think New Jersey has the worst schedule. So, you know, you can kind of get it. Timo Meier is definitely going to be making trends this week. So look forward to a deep dive on him on Tuesday. And until then, we're just going to have to wipe away our tears, I guess. Not much we can do. This is our last week streamers, you and me, Matt.
Yikes, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, yikes, but it's a photo finish. We're going to have to see how the weekend ends up. We both got 1 goal. I had Dorofiev, you had Rust. 9 shots for my Pavel and 5 for Brian, but hits and blocks were like, 2 and 1 mirror image, right?
Even,
yeah.
Jesus, Rust was a -6 though across the week. Like the next time we're in one of these situations and my option is a Pittsburgh Penguin or like anybody else, just reach through the screen and shake me a bit. Like,
well, again, no, you're my competition. I'm going to let you go.
You can have power play deployment, but who are you playing with? And it's just that's a tough hold. That's a really tough hold.
All right, injuries, storylines. Colorado's starting to get healthy. Val Nichushkin, Jonathan Drew, and Miles Wood returned for Colorado. For those of us in fantasy circles, it's Val and it's Johnny Druin who mean anything. Both of whom were on line 2, power play 2 up until today, where they switched Rantanen and Druin. So we're looking at Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Druin on line 1. Hopefully Druin can ditch those donuts and put up some stats. That would be pretty dope, wouldn't it? I know him and Mac have some pretty good chemistry. I think he put up like 57 or some odd points in 70-something games. So if we can get something close to that back, that'd be good. They're looking for depth. They're making things happen. Rance he always gets his, no matter where he's at. So I'm not too worried about it.
That PP2 could be interesting though.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. So Nuke seems like the obvious candidate to get the power play one bump there. And Colorado's power play right now is at 31%. So what's the purpose of changing anything, right? Like the one thing that
They have the luxury to
Colorado
wait.
needed, they do. Colorado, the one thing they were missing this season, early this season, was depth. And for them to put the guys coming back, I mean, first of all, Val Nichushkin needs a bit of a timeout, right? Like he fucked up. You need to be in the doghouse if only for 2 weeks. Like something needs to happen, right? So
Yeah, I mean, it was the
to earn
reason.
it.
I think people were really horny to, as soon as he was possibly available on Friday, get him out. Who am I dropping? It's a really weird finish to this week. So you'd have to finesse that into your roster to begin with. They only played Friday. It's his first game back. So, I mean, I opted to keep him in IR, and pretty happy I did with what he did through game one.
Yeah, and I with power play one as potent as it is, you're kind of rooting for a cold streak. They haven't really had like the last time they went 3 games without a power play goal was March, and I mean they had an 8-game drought where they went 0-19, like way earlier to that. So
this is the double-edged sword of the IR stash.
Yeah.
Even with a player as good as Nichushkin, or sorry, has the potential that Nichushkin has showed, the easiest thing you will ever do is pop that player in your IR and just forget about them and say, at some point down the road, future me is going to figure out how to just slide this person right back into the lineup.
That's a tomorrow problem.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see with Val even, it wasn't quite that easy. And again, you don't know what you're getting out of the gate. So every single time there's a lot of information you don't have at your disposal to make that decision. And it usually involves dropping an active player from your roster. So I'm hoping that he starts to show a little bit more of a pulse when they're out there. But for the time being, he'll happily stay exactly where he is. Schedule looks decent.
Burn that bridge when we get there.
Totally.
Mark Stone skated yesterday. Lars Eller drew as the 3C in Washington with Verana and Mangiapane. If you're into that kind of thing, a deep enough league might warrant that. Anaheim, Fabry is out 6 to 8 weeks with knee surgery. Fowler's got 2 to 4 weeks on the shelf, upper body, and McTavish is just day-to-day. So Anaheim's going to be looking for some reinforcements coming up soon. Pyotr Kachav. Brindamore's not concerned, whatever the fuck that means. So
yeah, really,
he's hurt, but not hurt. They called up Yana Peretz. Frederik Andersen is worse than week to week. They said it's going to be way longer.
That was interesting language, eh? Worse than week to week.
Somebody in the Discord said death, taxes, and no timetable on Frederik Andersen. Those are the 3 things.
The comment, buddy. We talked about it.
It was good. Pyotr Kachav, I mean, the Canes are a wagon right now. You got to be rostering this guy. Carolina, you got here, plays 11 games over the next 3 weeks with.
And it was Martin tonight, I think. They played tonight. They shut out. Forgetting off the top of my head who they shut out, but Martin got the shutout. So
they played. I want to say Ottawa.
Yeah,
that's
right. Because Ottawa hasn't been shut out yet this year. But I mean, I guess so. It's Koch or it's Peretz and Martin, while Koch is on the sideline.
Yeah, there wasn't much in terms of like a timetable on him, but it didn't sound any worse than day to day. So it wouldn't.
They got to figure it out, man. Like Carolina plays 11 games over the next 3 weeks. That's near the top in terms of all the remainder of the teams, and they have 3 back-to-backs. So whatever the backup plan is, it's going to be in action.
Sounds like 8 games for Kochetkov for me. Georgiev day to day. He is traveling with the team. Annunen got pulled, gave up 3 goals on 6 shots. They put in Trent Miner. He did okay. I think it was like, what did he give up? 1 goal on 13 shots.
1 on 12 or 1 on 13, yeah.
Yeah. Darcy Kemper on IR. Portillo got called up, so that's going to be Rittich for the foreseeable future. Tage Thompson is skating on his own. He's working his way back. Seth Jones, this one's going to have some implications. So he's out for a while. It looks like Alex Vlasic is running that top power play. They called up somebody that's not Korchinski, not Levshinov. So, as much as I wanted to see that, doesn't seem like it's going to happen, at least not right now. So it looks like Alex Vlasic's going to be the guy. Any interest there? Like, I'm kind of putting him in a league with like Liljegren, Wallman, even Uvis Bazlinkis or whatever in Florida. Like Brant Clark got moved off top power play in
Yeah, he
LA.
did.
So there's kind of like this tier where I think Alex Vlasic starts to move into Chicago power play. This if you're interested in San Jose's power play, you might as well be interested in Chicago's, and that's where Vlasic's going to be hanging out for a little bit. Any interest there?
Yeah, not really. I mean, and this comes as somebody who did own Seth Jones. But no, I mean, at best, he was treading water in my roster. And that's even with a bit of a bangs lean in the leagues.
Yeah.
So his replacement, I think I'll pass.
Some headlines. No, I got one injury left. It's Minnesota. This is a big one too.
Yeah, like team injuries here.
We were talking about Boldy in the 5-hole Discord, like the host Discord, a little bit, and Zuccarello's out. He had surgery, 3 to 4 weeks on him. Joel Eriksson did not play today. Brodin did not play today. They were both game time decisions, so that leads me to believe like next game is
they're probably in
closer to a sure thing. Yeah,
but
lineup right
Zuccarello,
now
that's
is
the big one.
Man, Boldy's up there. That kind of leaves like I've been nothing short of disappointed in Joel Eriksson this year, and that's because he's been removed from Kaprizov. So there's not that like ancillary, somebody's not just feeding him points and assists right now. And Rossi, I don't know what they're doing, but like Rossi's not putting up Jeek numbers. So I don't know. But right now it's Kaprizov, Rossi, Boldy, Marjo, Hartman, and Foligno. I assume things are going to change when Jeek comes back. Maybe Hartman goes down to line 3. We'll see what happens. But
would you target Boldy like we talked
as
about?
a trade?
Well, yeah,
I
mean,
Boldy, so I'm the lucky
okay,
one.
you're clean there.
People could reach out, yeah.
Now, but that's what I mean. That was the one thing that we said would unlock a potential higher tier of production than the current plane he's on. And within a week, it happened. So 3 to 4 weeks is not the whole season, but I mean, that's maybe worth a kick. He's been playing really well lately, though. So
I'll tell you, man, as soon as this happens, like, I'm privy to it. If there's a Boldy owner in your league that's not privy to it, maybe you can send a trade offer. Yeah, get this 3 to 4 weeks. And then even like, regular Boldy is still pretty good. So have at it. All right, that's where we're getting into the headlines here. Talked about Los Angeles going with that 5-forward power play. It's Kempe at the point, then Fiala, Kopitar, LaFerriere, and Quentin Byfield at the net front. Brett Clark on power play 2. 5-forward power plays, they're really short-lived. I don't know if I'd be worried as a Brent Clark owner. What do you think?
No. Every year, a team or two experiments with this for a short period of time. Usually injury-driven, actually, which in this case, I don't believe it is.
This one seems like they're really trying to pump up Byfield. Like they want some production out of him. They like it, and it's just like too many cooks in the kitchen. Somebody's got to move off, and that's where it is. Jonathan Lekkerimäki in Vancouver. This is going to get the Vancouver fans riled up, you would think. First NHL goal, got moved up to the top power play. He's playing with JT Miller and Pyre Suter right now. 5 shots on goal in his debut, 2 hits, just under 15 minutes time on ice. I see you got here, Vancouver's streaming week kind of sucks, but like this is maybe not a roster move, but a watch list move. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think it is a watch list move. It's actually, yeah, I was saying it's kind of a shitty streaming week for Vancouver as a team for this young guy to be having a moment. And through one game, obviously, he's really shown some talent and splashed. But next week, their schedule is atrocious. So, he would definitely be considered a periphery player from Vancouver at this point, but watch list, absolutely.
This is definitely a good week to spot stream if you got it, because no Friday Sunday guys. So if Lekkerimäki's out there and no other options are on a Vancouver game that you like, send that one. Tristan Jarry still sucks. That's my next talking point
hot
here.
Garbage, man.
5 goals allowed versus Columbus. Really bad start. He put up a roast beef sandwich there. Just a terrible showing. Continued terrible showing. I guess the time in the AHL didn't really condition him.
I think they're really, and from what I heard, they're showcasing him from the standpoint of just like, we have to see what we have in this guy. They know what the talent's like. He's been through their organization. I think this is really like mentally, like what is this player able to go through that adversity and bounce back and contribute to our top team roster? And if he is, great. And if he isn't, what are their options with him? Like the
Well, I'll tell you, I've been kicking around some subreddits. Colorado, they seem like they're desperate for a goalie. I mean, they've got
well, they
everything
are.
except for goaltending.
Mhm.
The name being tossed around is John Gibson, which makes sense. But
Gibby's
for
got
a
some
team like
ridiculous
Pittsburgh,
stats through
he's been good.
2 starts or whatever. Certainly better than
If
Jari.
you're Anaheim Brass right now, like sell high has got to be like one of the hot
Yeah.
button issues, right? So, but again, Pittsburgh, like if you're Dubas, you see the writing on the wall, right? Like the window's closing, the window's closed, and get what you can. You got Blomqvist, figure it out. But the Crosby era, he wants that to. What did he say? Everybody's on the table except Crosby. We're not going to rebuild until Crosby
That's
retires
right.
or something. So, if you can get your picks and pucks out of Tristan Jarry, you should absolutely go for it. So we'll see. I mean, like I'd love to see Colorado make a move for a goaltender. They've done that before. Jarry would be a terrible option on paper, but yeah. Cutter Gauthier got his first goal. Cool, man. Still salty as a Flyers.
You sound
fan,
enthused.
But,
That's right.
Bednar, he did lay into his goalies. I guess this would have been a good segue when I was talking Jarry. Via Twitter, Evan Rowell said Bednar did not mince words about Annanen's performance. The goalies weren't good enough for sure. Yossis. First shot, point shot, no screen. Second one, no good. Third one, didn't like that one either. So he did say Georgiev is going to go on the trip. I mean, he's fired up. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're top of their shopping list as a goaltender right now. And that's something you don't want to make that trade at the trade deadline. Like you want them to get some jive with their defense and kind of get a rhythm before playoffs. So sooner rather than later, if they're going to be making a move. The Predators have been shut out 3 times this season. 11 of their 18 games, they've been held to 2 goals or less.
That's wild.
You add Stamkos, you add Marchessault. I feel like I'm kicking a dead horse here, but it's just like,
yeah.
how?
But it is a bit of an anomaly. Like typically when teams have that low of a sustained production, they're either shooting at an abysmal rate or they're not taking enough shots, or typically both to be sitting where they are. They're T11 in the league in shots for per game. They're tied with Vegas. I don't think anybody would put their hand up and say Vegas isn't shooting enough, right? Like that's the same as what the Preds are doing. The only difference is the Preds are 32nd in the league in shooting percentage at like 7.5%. So long term, I'll probably bet on volume over conversion because I think they've been shown they can sustain the volume. But it's been more than a bit of a slump. It's been really hard to hold even the best Nashville players through the
They're
first
middle
15,
of the pack.
16. Yeah.
Middle of the pack with expected goals too. So it's not like, for lack of getting to the dirty areas, for lack of taking good shots, they're just getting stonewalled, They can like my fantasy team has been doing this too. Like I've been getting blue balled every single week for the last 3 weeks. I go 3-0 and now I'm going 0-3. This shit sucks. So, I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but I feel your pain, Nashville. I really do. Genuinely. Probably worse, actually. No. Eichel, 11 points in 5 games. Fuck, what can we say about this guy?
He's been on fire the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of the hottest players in the league. And the next segment here, we're going to be talking a lot of hot players.
What a pro, just the segue right into some active streaks. One thing we haven't done on this show in a little while is talk about who's really scorching hot right now and who is ice cold. And that can lead us into maybe some opportunity to unload a couple of those hot players or really target some of those cold players. So we'll get into a few active point streaks right now. Who's really hot? We got 6 players on a current 5-game scoring streak. This was heading into today, so a few of these may have changed since then. We got 6 players with a 5-game streak right now. Connor McMichael, Rasmus Dahlin, JJ Peterka. Of note there, a couple of Sabres. Braden Point, Travis Konechny, Jack Eichel. Not a lot of low-hanging fruit there in terms of options to acquire. We got 3 players that are on a 6-game point streak right now. Jordan Kyrou, Artemi Panarin, and Kucherov. We got 3 more players on 7-game point streaks. Trevor Moore, keep that name in the back of your mind. Barkov and Mark Stone with a bit of an asterisk here because that was leading into his injury. Then we have one player with a 9-gamer heading into tonight, although I don't believe he got any points tonight because I don't think.
I think he did. I got
Did he?
I mean,
No
Yahoo is
goals,
ass,
but
and I
I
don't
was
have my
saying no
phone.
goals.
Yeah, 3 assists.
Oh, come on. All right. So he's up to 10 game point streak with 8 goals and 8 assists, and that's Sam Reinhart. He's doing everything. He's shooting, scoring, he's on the ice all the time. Yeah, and only to be eclipsed by an 11-game streak and counting for Martin Necas. 8 goals, 12.
Yep, he hit the mark tonight, yeah.
What did he put on the board tonight? Because he had 22 and 11 before.
All I saw was the official Carolina Twitter account said, for those counting, Martin Necas is up to a 12-game point streak.
So that's fantastic if you happen to own any one of those players. Almost every single name that we mentioned there is highly owned. So let's take a look at some players that are under 50% rosters, and they're currently on a 3-game or greater hot streak. Okay, so these are players you might actually be able to acquire. First one, of course, I just mentioned Trevor Moore, 49% on the Kings, 7 games, 9 points. He's got 15 points or 15 shots on goal over those 7 games. Line 1, power play 2, he's available.
Paterka, too.
He does, yeah. Paterka, I think he's got dual eligibility as well, too. Does he not?
I'm checking.
I don't have that pulled up in front. JJ Paterka, 44%. He's got 7 points in 4 games or over his last 5. 10 shots. He's got very good deployment as well. Kent Johnson on Columbus, 3% owned. He's got 5 points over his last 4. Probably not picking up.
He just came back, too. I'm pretty sure he just came back from injury or something.
Yeah. Rasmus Sandin. So a couple defensemen here on a couple of these lists we're going to go over. 14% owned on Washington. He's got 4 points in 4. So he kind of scraped onto the list. He does give you periffs, though. And Kyle Palmieri, the ageless one. So 23% owned. He's on a 4 points in 3 games. So again, scraped into the list. That dude is on the ice all the time. Over 20 minutes a night on the island. So some players there that are on some streaks and potentially available in your leagues. Over to maybe, again, there's a lot of players that are on cold streaks, so we needed to be a little bit more refined here in who we want to look at. So we looked at players that are over 50% rostered, and the cold streak is greater than 4 games. So I have Brady Shea on this list only because he's leading this list. But 9 games, no points. He's a defenseman, Nashville. He's a banger. I mean,
surprise, Nashville leading off this list here.
They are. Yeah, although we'll follow it up with somebody who should be scoring but isn't, is Ryan O'Reilly. He's got a 5-game cold streak going, no points. The stat I wanted to reference here for all these players is power play time on ice share. So Ryan O'Reilly, 60% of the power play time in Nashville, no points through 5. Rasmus Anderson, early season darling in Calgary, 87% owned. He's got no points in his last 7. Now we know he's lost a bit of power play time. He's got 44% of that share, with Uyghur taking up the rest. Jeff Skinner over at Edmonton, 46% owned. He's on a 5-game pointless streak as well. Barely sniffs the power play there. And there seem to be heating up in Edmonton right now. So I wouldn't expect him to have a more expanded role to that point. Buddy, we just talked about Rust earlier. Rickard Rakell in Pittsburgh, 34% owned. Great streaming week. Everything lined up perfectly. He's got no points in his last 5. He plays 20 minutes a night, and he gets 2/3 of the power play. So he gets all the stuff. He just hasn't really done anything with it. This is a weird name on the list. We got a couple of 4-gamers here to end it off, but more players of note. So Kevin Fiala's gone 4 games without a point. He's like 90% owned, 70% power play share, as we just talked about with the 5 forwards. So maybe he snaps that schneid at some point. Elias Lindholm, he's been kind of disappointing owners the entire year so far, but 54% owned. He's got no points in his last 4. He doesn't play that much, admit it. Like I figured he was on the ice more 18, 19 minutes a night. It's like under 16. But he does get 70% of the power play time too in Boston. Just nobody's doing anything with the power play time in Boston. And I will close this out with Nino Niederreiter, 50% owned. Winnipeg, the wagon we've been talking about, although they got pasted tonight in a bit of a reality check, 5-0. But over his last 4, he's got no points. playing about a third of the time on the power play, but he only plays like 14, 15 minutes a night. So just a few cold streaks and active hot streaks of note. Anything really jump out to you there, TJ, in terms of, somebody that's, really on the skids, or, maybe somebody
Yeah.
that's on that hot list that we could look at potentially moving?
Well, I feel like Elias Lindholm is a huge pain point for a lot of people. He's been coming up a bunch in the Discord, all over Reddit and different social media outlets. Like, people are at their wits' end with this dude. And Boston is, they're having a weird year. It feels like, maybe time is finally catching up to them. Something we've been calling for
Yeah, feels
years
like
and years and years, and maybe this is the year. I don't know. It's still every single year they find a way to defy time and age, and uh, so he's one that's really puzzling. Fiala, yeah, I got so much faith in the guy. I think he's going to do it. Trevor Moore, huge fan of Trevor Moore, just such a banger. Like, he's, for a Los Angeles King, I feel like he's one of the more underrated guys. Such
he
a
was a
role
good own
player,
last year too.
integral part of like him, Dano, and RV were such a good line together. And obviously RV's not there, but Rickard Rackle, yeah, I'd love to see him score. And this is what he does. He blazing hot and then ice cold for a long time. So I don't know, not much in terms of Kent Johnson could be a fun play, but I don't see a ton of like potential there. Paterka, yeah,
So
I don't
these
know,
some of these players are out there. I mean, we didn't just bring
yeah.
these up in a vacuum. The cold players specifically are some of those are of note with the ownership, but really some of these hot players, especially ones that are under 50% owned and are on streaks. These are players that are giving you active contributions to your totals every single night, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But depending on where you stand in the standings for your league, you need to target some of that splash, maybe a little bit more than consistency.
Oh yeah.
So this is going to be a recurring theme for us as we move through the year.
Unsustainability is what wins you weeks. Winning those weeks gets you to the playoffs, and then handle it from there. Tips for the week. This is a weird streaming week. So 46 games on the week. 18 of them are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's a third.
And it's like
But
6-6-6, right? TJ, like evenly distributed,
for
of course, right? No,
no, not even
no.
close. So 3 of those 18 are Friday, Sunday. We have no Friday, Sunday stream teams. So for me, like, what I'm looking at, I think you get the most value out of your acquisitions early in the week, and it just feels like such a like, you always want to keep one of those ads in your back pocket for Sunday, or for just late week ads that you might need, or maybe even a goalie start that you're desperate for. Um, this is why I love the 5-hole game grid, and what I'm going to do here is I'll share the screen. You can toggle off the rest of these weeks, and you see, like, there's just 2 games on Friday, 1 game on Sunday. When you get to that weekend, like, most of your competition in your league is going to be full up on Saturday. So everybody is going to be going for the 1 game on Sunday. Everybody is going to be going for these 2 games on Friday. The best of those teams is going to be, they're going to be gone. So you're going to wind up with, like, Alex Kerfoot as your top option for Sunday. And is Alex Kerfoot going to win you a week? Probably not. So if you go heavy beginning of the week, that's kind of where I'm leading. Like, it's always good to have that Hail Mary in your corner, but I just don't think, like, saving ads for Utah or Toronto is going to really, like, I think you're doing more harm than good right there. Utah, their off nights are Monday and Sunday. So a lot of folks out there are like, oh yeah, Utah's got the best schedule. I don't think so. I think they have a detrimental schedule, because not only are they, and this is something I get into when we talk about Utah, but, like, they're going up against tough teams defensively, and they're not offensive right now. They're struggling offensively. They're putting up not enough goals, and they're going up against teams that are stifling goals. So going for off, like, if you're going to hold a Nick Bugstad for the whole week, I don't know. That, to me, that feels almost like a waste. Yeah, he could go off top line, whatever, but for me, load up the beginning of the week. Try to do as much as you can. The teams that lead the beginning of the week actually change. So San Jose has the best schedule, Edmonton, Dallas, New York. So teams that you're not necessarily thinking of when you're looking at the week as a whole, if you break it up into these two segments, you're not going to be able to do a lot Friday and Sunday. And Saturday, you're probably full with 15 games on the slate. So for me, load up early. If you go into Friday with 0 ads left, I think you did it right. So that's where I'd be going.
I like that a lot because this week is unique in the distribution of the games. It's the weekends. It sounds silly, but it's pretty much set it and forget it. 15 games on Saturday, so 30 teams are playing. You're going to make your start sits. You're going to set that roster, and Sunday, like we said, there's one game, 2 teams playing. To your point, what kind of needle do you have to thread, maybe in a Cats league where you get to Sunday and you've played 97% of the games in the week and you are close enough in multiple categories where streaming in one marginal player from Utah or Toronto is going to make the difference? Like, that's kind of what you're selling yourself at the beginning of the week on if you're drafting a Utah player. The only caveat I would say is if you can get that Thursday game in. If you can fit the Thursday game in, then you're getting 3 games from a Utah team and you're getting the 2 bookends. That you could possibly justify. But like I said, you get 3 of the first 4 with San Jose, and Dallas has got a good schedule. And so the caveat for me with Utah would be, do you get the Thursday, and who the hell are you streaming in there? Because if it's Genther or somebody that has a legitimate chance of contributing to your team, great. If it's just another games played body, you could do so much better with that earlier in the week. And these types of decisions are going to start to matter. So we say week 6 is a day away from its conclusion. The fantasy season's like 30% over already. So where do you stand through week 6? And this is important in terms of strategy over the coming 3 to 4 week block, the end of which is the middle point of the season. We get to week 10, week 11, we're halfway through, which is 4 weeks out from where we stand right now. So if you were at that point right now, would you be a net seller? Are you a net buyer? Are you waiting out cold streaks on players? Can you afford to wait out cold streaks on multiple players? So league standings are starting to matter at the 6-week mark. It's not necessarily the number of points back. It's more the number of teams you have to leapfrog in your league. So where do you stand right now? We've kind of broken this up into 3 different categories based on the structure of your league. So if you're in the top 25% of your league right now through 6 weeks, you've probably got a strong core. You've had some early streaming success. You've got at least one hot goalie that you acquired via draft or streaming, and things are going pretty damn well. Is it sustainable? That's another question. So if the core is what's driving your production and not just getting lucky on the waiver wire each week, then what are you missing? So you always want to look to acquire the things that you can't find on the waiver wire. And in most leagues, that's going to be some combination of goals, power play points, and shots on goals. So don't trade for players that hit or block unless they're truly a category winner and you can justify that one player in that spot taking up an entire roster spot. And in most cases, that doesn't make sense. But you have the luxury of being able to trade to build some depth here. Nobody's likely going to trade you a stud player if you're already a top team, but you can sneak in a lot of trades for lower and mid-tier players with a lot less noise in your league. And that's what you're probably going to have to do from this point onward. Moving on, now we're in the middle 50% of the league, not the top 25, not the bottom 25, the middle 50. So think playoffs plus or minus 2 or 3 spots, depending on your league size, the meaty middle. So this is usually a really compressed tier in your league. There's going to be like 5 teams within 2 points of each other or something like that. But everybody lacks a bit of consistency week over week. But there's not a lot of room for error in the middle here. You can go from 7th to 11th real quick. So you got to move through that gauntlet. And to do that, you kind of have to win the season in chunks. 2 to 3 week blocks where you heavily prioritize the roster of the opponent you're facing, like their core, right? I wouldn't necessarily, if I was in second place, be structuring what my roster would look like for the opponent I'm going to be facing a week or 2 down the road. But if I'm in 9th, I don't have the luxury of worrying about who I'm going to be facing down the stretch or in the playoff weeks because I might not be there. So take those 2 and 3 week blocks, keep your core consistent, but prioritize your waivers, your ads, your mid and low tier trades, all that stuff around maximizing games and winning those weeks. You don't have the luxury of waiver wire ads for playoff schedules. You kind of need those fog lights right now. You're in the fog a little bit. And last but not least, the very bottom 25% of your league. So this is some combination of an ADP graveyard and some injury, like some compilation of injuries. So you're down at this point, but you're not out yet. You got 70% of the season left in front of you. But what you need now more than anything is variance on your roster. So it took some home run weeks versus you to get you to where you are right now. So it's going to take some home run weeks to claw out of the basement. You can't win 6-5-1 every week and find your way into the playoffs if you've dug yourself into a hole. So generally speaking, like if your opponent has more talent than you need to take more risks to win. And risk in this context is going to be higher variance players in your league versus a more consistent producer who you probably don't have anyways because you're in the basement. So trades to acquire talent like this, we're looking at cold players with some burst upside. And like TJ and I talk about all the time, we don't just throw these concepts out in a vacuum. We're going to bring some receipts. So what I'm talking about here could be something like 2023 players who had multi-point games, right? And in this case, I put a threshold over 25%. Every 4 games they played, there was a multi-point game, which is what you need. You need ceiling and burst, not consistency. So just go checks. There's guys right here on this list right now that might be available in your league. Rob Thomas, Brock Nelson, Val Nichushkin, Nick Suzuki scored again tonight. Lucas Raymond, those guys all did that last year.
Mikael Granlund doing it this year. Just
for real.
check.
That's right. Some trade opportunities, like, these are more depressed ADP players: Stamkos, Hyman, EP40, Philip Forsberg, Adrian Kempe. These are players that all did that last year and have shown that in their career with consistency. But even looking at this year, like 2024, and if I notch that multi-point game threshold up to 33%, because we're early in the year, there's a bit more variance. And so who's doing this every 3 games for you? Not getting 1 point, but getting multiple points. Mason Marchment, Mikael Granlund, Nick Suzuki on the list again, Jared McCann, Connor McMichael, Matty Duchene. Guys, the list, there's more people on that list. So think about who you can acquire that's going to give you the burst to win the current week. And the next week is wash, rinse, repeat. You might overpay if it's a trade scenario for who you're acquiring. But I mean, at this point, what's the worst that can happen? You're already in the basement of your league. You're looking to take some swings, but do it on players that are going to give you home run outcomes because that's what you're going to need to move up the standings.
Sounds like wherever you are in your league, kind of focus on doing the opposite. So if you're in the ceiling of your league, you need to shore up your floor. If you're at the floor of your league, you need to shore up your ceiling. You really need to take those big swings.
The Costanza strategy, just whatever your initial thought was, do the opposite.
There you go. We're going to get into the schedule now, man. This is, like I said, very weird week. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are all off nights, technically, especially if you have that 7-game threshold. For me, 8 games is an off night, so we're calling Tuesday an off night here. There are no Friday, Sunday teams. So again, bringing that point back. Our games played leaders, that's Utah, San Jose, and Edmonton. The off night leaders, there's nobody with 4 off nights, nobody with 3 off nights and 4 games. But there is Anaheim with 3 games, 3 off nights. So look at that if you're into it. But Anaheim, it's Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. 4 games, 2 off nights. That's where Utah comes into play. San Jose and Edmonton. 3 games, 2 off nights. Winnipeg, Dallas, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. The easiest schedules, there's a few of them. Utah is going to see Boston and Pittsburgh. Both of those are the heavy nights. So it kind of doesn't matter in terms of opponents. If you're going Utah and you're going off nights, you're playing Washington, you're playing Toronto this week. Winnipeg, they've got Florida, Pittsburgh, and Nashville. So Florida's going to be a tough matchup, but Pittsburgh, Nashville, those should be gimme games. And Nashville's on a heavy night. San Jose's got Detroit, Dallas, St. Louis, and Buffalo, so I really like that one. Dallas, they're a tight team, but they don't give up a lot. Detroit, St. Louis, Buffalo, those 3 games can go any which way. Dallas has Anaheim, San Jose, and Tampa, and that one looks pretty good. Anaheim's got Dallas, Chicago, Buffalo. So the end of the week for Anaheim looks pretty good. New Jersey Devils, they got 2 games, no off nights, so my Blake Coleman, Stefan Nason allegory, that doesn't really matter this week. The best schedules overall: Utah, Winnipeg, San Jose, Edmonton, Dallas, and Anaheim. And that's kind of in descending order. Back-to-back goalie streams. Let's get into it. Are you going to target these guys? Are you going to avoid these guys? Monday, Tuesday's got Edmonton and Anaheim as back-to-back. So we're looking at Lucas Dostal-ish, John Gibson-ish, and Calvin Pickard. Montreal, Ottawa for Edmonton. Would you like Pickard in either of those?
The Montreal side, potentially. And same thing with the Anaheim. If you can get the Chicago start, depending on which goalie that's going to be. Because Dostal found his way off a lot of rosters over the last few weeks. So you might have both those guys out there.
And his last game was pretty good. So, I mean, obviously he didn't lose it. He didn't forget how to beat goalies. So Tuesday, Wednesday, there's no back-to-backs. Wednesday, Thursday, you got San Jose. Depending on where Vanacek is in his recovery, if it's anything serious, they're going to play Dallas and St. Louis. So those are 2 kind of, Dallas is going to be a hard one to stream on, but St. Louis, Binnington's one of the worst goalies of the week, so that could very well be a thing. Or maybe they get Hofer.
Yeah, the San Jose side with St. Louis would be the stream for sure.
Carolina, I have no idea what their goalie situation looks like.
Man, that's tough.
Is it Peretz? Is it Martin? Is it Kochikov? But they're going to play Philadelphia and New Jersey. If you can key in on that Philly, absolutely go for it. And Vegas, they're playing Toronto and Ottawa. Those are, for me, those are kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't chance it.
No, I wouldn't look to target either of those offenses.
Thursday, Friday, no back-to-backs. Friday, Saturday, you got Winnipeg, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh with back-to-back sets. Winnipeg's going to play Pittsburgh, Nashville. I really like this one if you can get the back up there. Buffalo, Anaheim, San Jose, same deal. I'm pretty sure Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen might even be semi-available. So, really,
he might be back for that game.
Yeah, take your chances on that one. Pittsburgh's going to see Winnipeg and Utah. No, thank you. Don't like any of their goalies, even against. If they were playing Pittsburgh,
they don't like any of their goalies.
Yeah. Utah, they're going to see Pittsburgh and Toronto Saturday, Sunday, maybe the Pittsburgh game. Vejmelka's 4% rostered. Ingram doesn't look so bad in the 50s either. So
Vejmelka's got good under the hood stats too.
Have at it. All right, let's talk about some of the guys that are worth either thinking about cutting or cutting.
Yeah, we get all horned up about who we're going to add to our rosters and the moves we're going to make. And sometimes these players end up staying on our rosters a lot longer than they should be. So we're going to talk about some players that you would have probably added over the last week, just given their team schedule, and who you can pretty confidently drop this week, given how bad their team schedules are. So last week we had some great schedules. We'll start with Vegas. They played all off nights last week. This week, they play 3 games. 2 of them are on heavy nights. So we're looking at your McNabbs, your Nicholas Waugh. I might even go as far down the list as Dorofeyev, Barbashev. Again, depends on the depth of your league. But if you're going to get 1 game out of those players over the course of the whole week, it's a bit of a tough hold. You're obviously not dropping the Eichels and the core of the team. But some of those periphery players, I think I'd be jettisoning. For somebody that can get me, realistically, you're not getting the Saturday game. So at most, you're going to get maybe 3 games. But you can squeeze it to 4 with the streamer spot. And if that player is only giving you 1, it's definitely worth a conversation. Over to Nashville. Again, we keep saying the schedule looks good and the players we stream in keep doing pretty much nothing. Last week was no exception. So Nashville only plays 2 games this week. So it's going to be really easy to hover over the players drop button for Gustav Nyquist, Parsonen, Luke Evangelista, even Ryan O'Reilly, man. He's barely over 50% owned, but there is not a lot happening.
There's 5 players that I would hold. Stamkos, Forsberg, obviously, Yossi, Marchessault, and Saros. Those might be the only ones that
That might be it. I
yeah,
think O'Reilly's the cutoff line in terms of
definitely,
that.
yeah.
Carolina, we were just talking about them. Typically, we're talking about them with what's happening in the net, but they only play 3 times this week, twice on heavy nights. So again, you're probably only getting one game from this player. Martinuk had a great stream last week, but is he going to help you this week for one game? Orlov, same thing. Roslovic, all the hype going into last week,
Oh my
a
god.
bit of a swing and a miss
You
there.
remember last second I changed from
You
Roslovic to
did.
Dorofiev. So
You did. I mean, again, at least Dorofiev gave us something. Roslovic, I don't think did anything last week. And Slavin too. He can probably be dropped unless you really need defensive depth. Seattle's in a similar boat. They only played 2 games this week. I guess the bigger question with Seattle is who are you keeping? Like outside of McCann and Montour and Dunn on your IR, like everybody else is like under 25% owned. So put them right back where you got them
see ya.
and they'll be right there when you need them again. They're perfect team for that. Um, and Vancouver's in a similar boat. 2 games this week. We talked about the young kid getting his first start, but even think about players like his line mate Pius Suter, Connor Garland, Jake DeBrusk, Philip Hronik. These are all players that you're probably not going to keep to hold for 2 games this week. St. Louis, they play 3 games, one heavy night, so you might get 2 games of St. Louis players, but I'm thinking your Jake Neighbors, Falk, Shen, anybody else really jumping out on St. Louis that you'd consider keeping in maybe a 2-game week? What it looks like for them?
I
Maybe
Falk,
Shen.
like,
He's been hot lately.
man, I remember how much hype Falk had coming into the season, and that's tough. Braco, I think, could be like
Yeah.
borderline, but I feel like D is so much easier to, even on heavy nights, I feel like I still have open D spots on some nights. So I don't know. I have a harder time with that. But Shen, I'm right there with you. Buchnevich, I'm keeping. Kiru,
Yep.
I'm keeping. Kairu, I'm keeping. Those
And I
might be the
mean,
two.
I think that might be it. The last team we can finish it off with is Pittsburgh. I mean, again, 3 games this week, one heavy night. Fire them all into the sun, to be honest with you, in
Yeah.
terms of streaming, like Rust, Raquel, Bunting, Beauvillier. Beauvillier's got 3 goals in his last 3 games. But they get a pretty weak schedule next week. And the 2 early games they do get on Tuesday, Friday are against Vazzy and Helly. So I don't really want to stream
Yeah.
anybody against
Not
those
happening.
teams. So
Not
hard
happening.
pass on all of those players. They may have done some good things for you last week. You do not need them on your roster this week.
All right, this is where we're getting into the teams that have those best schedules and the guys from those teams, the teams and streams to target. Utah. Over the last 2 weeks, only 3 teams have fewer goals for per game than Utah. That's Nashville, surprise, surprise, Chicago, and San Jose. So if you can't get one of the top guys from Utah, it might not be the place to go. So if you're looking for a week-long stream out of Utah, I might lean Banks, to be honest with you. So if you're in a points-only league or a points-heavy league, I think you kind of just bounce. Dylan Gunther, Logan Cooley, Nick Schmaltz, Michael Kesselring, Nick Bugstad. And for some riffs, you can look at Jack McBain, Lawson Krause. But of those guys that aren't riffing, how would you rank them?
I kind of like the order you set them. Genther, obviously, he's a smidge over 50% if he's available. I think he's
Yeah,
the
feels like
option.
a cop out. Yeah.
Yeah, Cooley, I would say would be certainly your second best option. But again, he's line 2, power play 2. You start to look at what these players are actually producing for you. I'm going to get, again, we said caveat with Utah. If you're getting the third game, these players look a bit more attractive. But if you're getting 2 games of Logan Cooley and he's, getting you 2 shots and,
It's not a
maybe
weak
a
winner.
hit,
Yeah.
like, yeah, and I will say Nick Schmaltz has been Nick Schmaltzing over the last little bit too. I mean, under 2 shots, kind of only gets on the board with assists. So I'd be tempering expectations. I think Utah is going to be a bit of a trap this week for a lot of streamers.
I think so too. And hopefully my opponents go for it. Schmaltzing, also double meaning because he can schmaltz, and that means he's hot as fuck, usually January, February. And schmaltzing can also mean cold as hell. and
Yeah,
that's
this is the
usually
latter.
the rest of the months. San Jose, this is kind of where I think most of the value is going to be from this week. My streamer of the week does come from San Jose. Their power plays are they look like they're split. Celebrini's on power play 2, Toffoli's on power play 2. Liljegren down there. Power play 1 is Wallman, Wenberg, Zetterland, Eklund, and Granlund. That's very hard to say without stuttering. Um, Power play 2, Liljegren, Celebrini, Smith, Toffoli, and Gaudreau. So I wonder if they're going closer to a 50-50 split. Like that's definitely separating the talent. So just go check on Mikael Granlund. I think he's what, like 59% at this point. Like he's getting up there. Trial eligible, fresh. Line 2, power play 1, still looking really good. 22 minutes. My guy, I do want to take the mic on this one. Fabian Zetterlund is who I'm going for. He's going to give you the bangs. Like no matter what league you're in, Zetterlund's going to be checking those boxes for me. Over 18 minutes time on ice in his last 6 games played, a goal, 3 assists, a power play point, 13 shots, 12 hits, 8 blocks, line 2, power play 1. Zetterlund's going to be my guy. He's 26% rostered. Then you got Eklund. Just go checks on Celebrini. Just go check on Toffoli. If you're looking for riffs, Luke Kunin's out there. Ferrara's out there. How do you like San Jose streamers?
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to get Granlund if the league is competitive or really serious, because he'll be certainly owned at this point.
Should be.
But I love your pick for Zetterlund because he's going to give you that perif production. He's helping you irrespective of whether or not the puck's finding its way in the back of the net. And over a short period of time like this, that's really going to help out. I almost want to take the opposite over here. And I really love a guy like Toffoli in this spot. He gets a lot of ice time. It's funny you just mentioned Blake Coleman, because Toffoli reminds me in a little bit of a way of Blake Coleman as well too. He everywhere he goes, he kind of just does the same thing. Shoots the puck, converts at a decent amount, plays big minutes, up on line 1, line 2. But he kind of does it under the radar. Certainly out in San Jose, he's been doing that. So I mean, I don't have him as my streamer of the week, but he would certainly be in the conversation for me. If nothing else, just to shadow your Zetterlund.
So Toffoli, 10 shots in his last 6 games. It seems like something's up with Toffoli right now. And I don't know what it is. He hasn't really been doing it. I don't know. Does that worry you at all? Feels like, that's not him, right?
It really isn't. No, I mean, we haven't heard anything with respect to injury. Deployment looks fairly similar. So, I mean, it could just be a bit of a cold streak for him. But typically with volume shooters like that, we see a bit of a lead in terms of the increase in volume as a bit of a precursor to the production starting to happen. So I would have liked to have seen that volume start to increase, even if he hadn't converted yet. But he'll get his looks.
Next up, Winnipeg. The top options from this team, you're not going to get a hold of them. And those are the guys that are worth counting on. And I do need to change my tune on Gabriel Velarde. I need to be accountable for this. When I hated Gabriel Velarde, it's because he wasn't shooting, and he's shooting now. So I definitely need to change my gripe on him,
just fall on that sword a little bit. That's okay.
5 shots on goal in his first 6 games. And that's when I was kind of like, all right, this guy's an NPC. He's not doing anything. Since then, he's had 3 shots on goal per game or better. So I'm definitely changing my perspective on Velarde here. He's got the deployment. He's got the team behind him and the production to back it up. So I'm back in on Velarde. He's 53% rostered, so he's worth checking out. Line 1, power play 1. Then I guess the ancillary options are Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, who was mentioned in the cold streaks. Tons of riffs from Winnipeg. You can go Dylan Sandberg, Adam Lowry, Dylan DeMello, Colin Miller, Morgan Barron. Morgan Barron's 0% rostered. Lowry 15, DeMello 6. Like there's peripherals out there for you in Winnipeg if you want them this week. But between Nemesnikov and Niederreiter, who would you be leaning?
We've talked about Nino a lot this year in terms of his hot and his cold. So this might actually factor back into sort of where you stand currently in your league, because Nino does give you that splash. It could be a week where he scores 3 goals on 7 shots, and you might need that type of variance in your league. I do like his dual eligibility. The line 3 and the like all these guys. I mean, the big thing that jumps out to me with Velarde is that he gets so much more ice time than how
Yeah.
they roll these. But I would say their middle 6 forwards, they all start to have that same 14 to 15 and a half minute ice time range. And then you've got another tier of player who's playing 18, 19. So, I mean, Nino's been doing it this year, but it's been very hot and cold. So, like I say, it's buyer beware. A bit more consistency with Nemestikov recently. Um, I gotta just be honest with you. Like, I'm a
Go on.
little
Pass.
I'm a little bit past Winnipeg. Like I think the shine's going to come off the rose a little bit here. They're not going to stay screaming hot on fire the way that they have. And I just think to every other year where we've looked at these exact same names, and in a week where they have a good schedule, then they start to become valuable, and those bangs and things jump off the table. But in weeks where their schedule's kind of average or below average, these aren't players you're going to want to be holding on your team for long periods of time. So like this week coming up, different story. So I'd probably roll with Nino and hope for the best. But
Uh-oh. Looks like Jeff in the chat here is saying Velarde might have went down to line 2. I know they juggle their lines a lot when they're losing. So, and then they usually they go back to
well, they haven't done a lot of losing.
Yeah, so this is going to be uncharted territory for Winnipeg. I wonder what the lines are going to look like in the next one. But for me, as it stands right now, if you can't get Velarde, if you're looking at Winnipeg, it's just for peripherals. That's it. And they have a lot to go around and a lot of availability. Edmonton, this one hurts to talk. All I wrote here was fuck. Edmonton, they have nothing to offer you outside of the top guys, because that's the only, those are the only guys who are doing it. It's super top heavy roster. It feels like everybody else who gets points is kind of just accidental. Brett Kulak has some points, Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark. Brett Kulak leads those 3 with 1% rostered. Connor Brown 0, Matthias Janmark 0. So I don't know if the randos can keep it up. But Darnell Nurse, I guess I should have had him in the injury section, took a hit from Revo and went down in a bloody mess, did not return to the game. So he was my just go check here, but I think I got to change that a little bit. He might not be back. That was a brutal hit. Revo's should get suspended for 20, especially if the NHL wants to be serious on headshots. So I think they're going to make they're maybe not a martyr, because I feel like a martyr is somebody who stands for something good, but they're going to make an example out of him. The other guys worth talking about, Victor Arvidsson, if he comes back, I think he was a game time decision today, or at least an option today. Did not play. 20%. Jeff Skinner, Vasily Podkolzin, Corey Perry. If Arvidsson comes back, Perry loses that Draisaitl exposure. So is there anybody here you're looking for offense at all?
No, not really. Like I say, that at the beginning of the year, we were talking about the dance between Arvidsson and Skinner and who's going to kind of hold that second line spot. But nobody's really done that with consistency. And even the people that have spent some time there really haven't produced. So again, depending on the depth of your league, if you have the ability to hold, a Skinner or an Arvidsson, I really can't see going much below that. I mean, what are we talking about below there? Podkolzin and Perry and, really fourth line players at this point. Even Skinner's a fourth line player right now. So if you have to stream somebody from Edmonton, I guess Pods does give you the bangs alongside some shots, but that's a tough, I'd have to go really deep through some of those early week streaming teams before I get to any of the players we were just talking about.
I feel like the only way you're looking at Edmonton is if you're in I don't even know, 16 plus team league. This is bleak when it comes down to it. All right, we're getting into the speed round. We've talked about the top tier of teams. Let's get into Dallas, Anaheim, Buffalo, Philly, and Pittsburgh. We were talking about dropping a lot of those guys, so we're not going to talk about Pittsburgh. But Dallas, I feel like Logan Stankoven should just be owned regardless of
Agreed.
Like if you were sucked into the Wyatt Johnson hype last year, Stankoven's doing better than Wyjo was last year, and most recently, he took power play one from Wyatt Johnson. So Stankoven's got a little more leverage here. Him, Mason Marchment, Tyler Sagan. Between these three guys, how do you like the ranking at all?
I like them exactly how you have them laid out right now. Stankoven, if he is available, the dual eligibility is great. The PP1 exposure is fantastic, and he's been doing it all year. I know he's a rookie, so we got to moderate some expectations here. There's going to be some cold streaks as well, or even consistency might be a bit of an issue. But early in the season, not really the case. So if he's available, what do we got? 43% on an ownership check. If he is available in your league, you got to get out there. I mean, his last 5 games, he's 3 goals and assist, 24 shots on goal. So yeah, I would absolutely be sticking with Stankoven. Marchman's had a couple of splash games over the last 2 or 3 times he's been out. So that's certainly helping his, his season averages, his multi-point, stuff like that. I wish he was on the ice more, truthfully. It's really hard for me to get excited.
They were all on the ice more. Dallas
That's what I mean.
Dude.
Like, it's hard to get excited about a guy that plays 14 and a half minutes a night. I mean, he's doing great things with it. And over a short period of time, we can roll the dice on it. But same thing with Seguin. He's a little bit higher, 16 and change. But, he's giving you a point a game, shots, nothing else really in the riff department. So
no, I like back-to-backs this week.
No.
So we should get 3 games out of Sagan if you're a Sagan owner. And I know that unknown injury is going to keep him from back-to-backs, but Ilya Lyubushkin would be another one I'd look at for riffs there. Anaheim,
Thomas Harley too, maybe, right? Before we just move out to Dallas, I know he's been really slow. He's certainly not lighting up the score sheet, and he doesn't do a lot on the periph side, but their schedule starts to get good, and then it gets really good in the later half of the year and down the stretch. So somebody like Harley might be sleeping on your waiver wire in a week like this, where there's, you're going to be able to slot in that D-man, maybe get him for every single game that they play. It could be the start of a bit of a run, and you're going to want to own that player basically from this week onward.
And I'll tell you, Dallas, as the power play 1 and power play 2 get closer to 50%, power play 2 defenseman starts to look a little better.
That's right.
Power play 1 defenseman looks a little worse. Anaheim, we're looking at Frank Vetrano, Olin Zellweger, who's doing stuff on power play 1 there. Troy Terry, lots of riffs here. Ross Johnson, 22 hits in his last 6 games played. 0% rostered, this guy, Ross Johnson. Gudas, he's banging as he always does. He's 27%. Brock McGinn, 0% rostered. If you need some riffs, there they are. But with Vetrano, Zellweger, and Terry, how do you like these Anaheim Ducks?
Zellweger splashed in the last half dozen games or so, which is really interesting. I mean, PP quarterback. I don't believe there's any real competition for those minutes on that team with him up on power play 1 at this point. So, and he's certainly been producing. So if you can slot in a D-man, they play only 3 games, like we said, but all 3 of them are off nights. So you'll certainly get all those in. I have a bit of a soft spot for Troy Terry. We'll get down to our streamers shortly, but he is going to give you all 3 of those games on nights where you're going to get him in the schedule. He has been shooting a little bit more recently. The power play showed a bit of a pulse over the last handful of games. So I might be more inclined, again, assuming that you can't get Vetrano, check in your league. If Vetrano's there, he would be the person to stream. But I could be convinced with either Zellweger or Terry, depending on what rosters look like.
Sounds like more of a hard spot for Terry. I'll say that much. Buffalo, JJ Peterka, Dylan Cousins, Bowen Byram, Zach Benson. We got some options here. JJ Peterka leads the way at 44% rostered. Cousins at 24, Byram at 31, Benson at 3. Everybody's seeing some power play time in some fashion. Everybody's doing a little bit of stuff. Buffalo, what do you think about their schedule, and what do you think about these guys that we're talking about? They 2 off nights. One of them's on a heavy, so I guess you can get, if you are desperate for that Sunday game, you can do the Wednesday, you could do the Friday, and then drop whomever for this Sunday game.
Yeah, that's right. So you're again, maybe you could package this in where you've got a team, a couple teams that play Monday, Tuesday, and you could swap that out for a Buffalo player that's going to play Wednesday, Friday for you. I'm glad Dylan Cousins has finally got on the board. He had an epic goalless streak in terms of shots on goal. It was something 35 or something before he actually scored. But I would definitely take a look at Peterka. He's been very consistent, good eligibility, good deployment. Cousins, I would say, is right below him. Benson is interesting to me as well, too. I can't really go much further than that, like the Greenways and Beck Mallenstein. Again, you might get some bangs from a few of these guys. Byram, check. He's line one, and he's power play two. Again, I don't think you're going to get a ton of offensive upside from him, but there are a few players of note here. And Peterka, again, we talked about him in the section on streaks right now, where he's producing for you every single night. So if you can get Peterka, he's under 50%. Do it.
Over a point per game. Spend it. And Cousins going to give you a little bit of bangs too, so he'll cover a couple categories for you. Connor Clifton, somebody else that bangs there, and then Greenway, he's day to day. So, and Denny Gilbert. Philadelphia, there's no one really here for outlying reliable offense, but I wanted to beat the drum on Matvei Michkov, who's 54% rostered. You got to go check him and Stankoven. I think I would prefer Stankoven at this point for fantasy. But both these guys being, 55-ish%, even if it's not if it doesn't make sense for your roster this week, it's going to make sense for your roster on the season as a whole. And both of these guys are going to bring your floor up. So look and see if either of these guys are available in either league, or in any league. Both around 50%. Just go check.
And both those guys too actually give you the same identical Monday, Wednesday start this week. So and you're probably not getting the Saturday unless they blow up and you've got a really tough decision to make on Saturday. But you're getting the exact same two games from both those players.
It's worth noting, I have no idea what's going on with Cam York and Jamie Drysdale still on the shelf. So Emil Andre playing the top power play. He's 1% rostered for those of you guys in Marianas Trench leagues. Streamer of the weeks, that's where we're going. I feel real good about Fabian Zetterlund. It feels like it's going to be a little bit different than the past week. Yeah, I feel real good about it. I'll tell you, Dorofeev versus Rust, snooze fest. But this is going to be a good one. So
it can only be up from here. That's a great pick, honestly. And again, he's gonna give you something every night, even if he doesn't touch the score sheet. I'm going to stay right in Dallas with who we just talked about in Logan Stankoven. I feel like it's a bit of a layup. It's a bit of a layup pick. Yeah, center right wing, 43%. So he's just under the line. I will say, though, we talked about updating Streamer of the Week with the new rule. So in that regard, I am only going to get 2 games of production from Stankoven, or 2 games of double production from Stankoven, and whatever he will give me on those non-off nights. Whereas Anaheim does give us 3. So if we were sticking with, and in this case, they're the only team that gives us 3 off nights. So again, Troy Terry, 20% owned, right? He's doing stuff. He's in his last, he's 16 games. He's got 12 points, 6 of them goals, line 1, power play 1, scored a power play goal last game on 5 shots. He's doing some stuff for you. So I'd say Terry on Anaheim if I had to stick with a name, but Stankoven overall.
All right, I'll take it. I still feel good about Zets. It's going to be a tough one because Stank is he's a force to be reckoned with. They're going up against Anaheim and San Jose. That's about as much of a layup as you can get. That's going to be it for the week preview this week. We got trends coming up later this week, so get in the Discord or check me out on I almost said Facebook. What the fuck? Twitter. At FHF Hockey. Let me know who you guys want me to dig into on trends, and I'll get after them. Timo Meyer already on the docket. You have been called out, so he's going to turn around, I hope. But that's it for us. FHF Hockey on Twitter. We're in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. You guys can find us there. Until next time, guys, we love you.
Appreciate you guys.
Yep. Nice.